and also standards to maintain in terms of excellence.
Mm-hmm.
But you have, while doing that, keep in mind, as you put in the subject of your talk today, all the students that need extra help, and also the different rhythm everyone is learning. So one of the main challenges will be, I think, to work as a community, because it's a collective responsibility. It's a duty of care, but to care for all the kind of like learning rhythm of all the students. Some are learning very fast, some are interested in some subjects, some are not interested in some subjects. In the French curriculum, there are some options they can choose towards the end, but until the last 2 years of their education, it's quite broad. Like everyone has to do some philosophy, for example, at the end. So but philosophy is not maybe for everyone. So we have to just make sure everyone get interested in the subject, whatever their center of interest could be personally. So you have this broad community of learners, and you have to tailor for everyone and to adapt. Individualization is a challenge. It's a challenge for the teachers, it's a challenge for the school, and it's an everyday challenge we are ready to take on, because otherwise we will not be doing our job, really. Otherwise you're just like, say, today's curriculum A, B, C, and that's it. If you, either you learn or you don't learn, but I don't care, just carry on. Schools cannot be like that nowadays, okay? So we have to tailor for that. What we do is we obviously put in place individualized plan. As I said, everyone needs some support. In fact, the students need support, the parents need support, needs to explain, needs to make some all efforts of pedagogy to explain what we do. It has to be directed to the families. We have to co-educate the parents. We have to be to educate the kids together, and obviously work with the teachers and all the staff. They say they are the main entry point. Their responsibility is enormous, and asking colleagues to say, "Oh, you got 20 students. We don't have big class in the French lycée, and we're kind of lucky to have that. It's a privilege. It's not the case for all the schools. Let's keep that in mind. Between 15 and 20 students in his class, it's a privilege. But even with that, asking a teacher, saying, now you have to tailor for those wide range of learning students, their learning profiles, is a challenge. On the French lycée, we also have the challenge of languages, because some of them are more Anglophone, and when they're getting towards the exam, even if some of us speak different languages, we keep one of them is the preferred language. We have some preferred language, so we have to deal with that too. So we have to put that specific plans into place for that too.
Right.
So yeah, tailor for everyone. Keep that in mind.
Yeah. Priscilla, as an ABA therapist, I know earlier on we were talking about some of the challenges that you face, because not every school accepts, external therapists. And I know Dr. Fatima will have some words about that. But some schools have their own in-house therapists, and you have already been, familiar with the child case, and, you would want to go in, and not every school would accept that. Apart from that, what are some of the challenges that you face? And you can share more on what we discussed.
Yes. So I would say that, number one, it's a great thing that we have schools that are already well-versed and equipped with professionals within. And sometimes it gives you a peace knowing that this child is coming into a welcoming environment. Where the breach happens, and sometimes with Aris, there was a point where we had a client who was ready for school, and they were in a Montessori. Now we wanted, it only goes up to a certain age. So we were like, okay, Aris is the next stop. And in the initial discussions, we did sit with the SEN head, and we did collaborations. Where is this child? What's the notes? And I believe that is very important. But where we need, there was a bit of, should I say, mishap, was the lack of continuous check-ins. So yes, this child still needs help. Well, after a term, the school recommended that they still needed behavior support, because they might not have finished with what they needed to work with. And certain challenging behaviors are what we do. We do come in as a behavior analyst, come in, just do periodic check-ins, observe the child. What are some of the goals? What are some of the pointers I can give the shadow teacher who the school has appointed for the child? How can the teacher, what are some of the pointers you can give, knowing what you know about the child and your experience as a behavior analyst coming in and sitting? I think that's one thing in Ghana, and I'm not just putting one school in the spotlight, almost all the school, we lack that collaborative meetings. It's like parents go to school and they're on their own. Sadly, parents sometimes also don't do the research, so they also don't know what they are entitled to have. What are they supposed to expect? Then for children that I work with, most often I feel parents just feel like, I just want them to accept my child. I just want my child to be in a school. And so whether their children sometimes are being treated well or not, I'm currently dealing with a case of segregation in a so-called inclusive school. And this child just started, and I tend to advocate a lot for my clients, and I think advocation is a big thing. I believe in children being integrated in a mainstream as opposed to putting them in a special needs school. But we are not just saying that, let them just come to school all day. I know my child can maybe in the beginning really actively engage 5 minutes block of time. Can we build it up to the point where now this child is engaging in the full school day? It's not going to happen in a day. It will happen gradually, but we need that systematic checks. But here we are in a school, come in, child exhibits some challenging behaviors that comes with children on the spectrum, and then the school says, okay, you can't be in the classroom anymore, just be in the same room. Yes, you've given us the environment, but what we want, we know one-on-one. We know this child can learn in one-on-one. Give the child an opportunity to be in the group. That is a skill we want to build and develop. So for me, inclusion, I think it should be rather integration, not just inclusion, and equity opposed to equality. I think meet the child according to their needs. And I wrote something pertaining to, if teachers are just doing, there's a framework called Teach First. If teachers are basically tailoring their instructions before, and as you assess the child, what is each child's needs? Sometimes some of these things and challenges might not come up. I spent time doing screenings in schools, and I recently did, and I realized that especially the early years, teachers are the first point to identify the issues. Teachers are the one that the school tends to be the first people to say, oh, we've checked your child, it's not meeting this, it's not meeting, maybe we need to go look. But I believe even from that first stage, before parents go to see the diagnostic person, or before the person goes to see the external therapist, what can we do in our capacity as teachers to support the child? How is our teaching method already supporting children with diverse needs, not just because, I plan to do math in this way, I was coming to do addition this way, but how about teaching this child, you can have the manipulatives, right, the cubes, then you can use it to teach. Or I can give you concepts. Oh, we have 5 apples, 5 this. How do we do it together? I think if it's already embedded in your teaching plan or your lesson plan, sometimes some of these issues will be picked up quickly, and you can even help them without, I don't believe in always the facilitator coming from outside to support. I believe the school in itself can make up a plan with the help of the expert to understand that, okay, this is where this child is per assessment. Or I've come to observe the in-circle time going for 30 minutes. Really, after 2 minutes, this child started fidgeting and distracting the next person. What can we do? What are the things we are putting within the classroom? Sometimes it's not just pulling them out of the classroom. It can be a sensory table right at the back of the classroom where the child gets to calm down. They just go there, but they are still listening in. They are not out of the class. They are learning. Mind you, non-verbal, verbal, they all understand and they hear and they understand concepts. I had to test a boy who is 6 and he's been in school. Teachers had not checked, but I was like, you know what, let's check your sounds. And he used an AAC. I was like, oh, which one? And he could identify everyone. The teachers were shocked. And this should have been assessed by his teacher. But I believe just because we put a certain bracket and a certain thing, this child is just supposed to be in the school. We are not having high expectations for them. I really appreciate the international schools, but how many international schools do we have? How many parents can afford a system like ours? How many parents can afford a system like this? I have been in even the German system. How many parents can afford that system? It's really, and I don't know how many educators are here. I don't know. We really need to try and do better. I'm really talking from passion. Like, it is very frustrating when you know this child is capable of a lot. I have pushed this child to this point. How can we work to get them to that point? Granted, not every child can sit for an exam at the end, right? And that's why I was excited to hear about the two pathways at the end, where children can go into gifted areas, specialized areas. A child might be good with sewing and designing. Yes, the child might be good at certain things. It doesn't mean they need to sit for a certain examination at the end to show that my child is smart. Really, what are we doing with all the exams we've written so far as adults? I tell people, you keep stressing on handwriting. You and me, how many times do you pick a pen to write? You need to teach the children certain basic skills. Be exposed. Teachers, please be flexible. Please be flexible. He's not writing well. Even if the child is smart, the handwriting alone, and this has to do with a lot of our GES approach. Like, we overemphasize handwriting to the extent that 2-year-olds are writing when their motor development is not even there yet. This affects us, and if we are being true to ourselves, sometimes I tell parents, just look at yourself. When we were growing, I also didn't like handwriting, and you get to a point you write and you feel your wrists are hurting because you didn't properly develop the gross motor skills and the fine motor skills for you to be able to engage in that perfect skill. So we have a lot to do as teachers. Let's be open-minded. Let's come in and be willing to impact rather than just check the boxes. Checking the boxes is a lot. Sometimes schools is like, oh, my timetable is this. So I was doing observations and I went to the school and teacher was teaching tidying up. We had a classic opportunity to have practice tidying up at the playground before they went inside. But because we want to go in, they didn't follow through with the child to tidy up. Nothing like that. We go into the class and now teacher is giving a lecture on tidying up. The learning could have happened before we even go in to talk about it. So I believe we need to be flexible. Take every opportunity a child is with you. And especially for our children, we know it can be challenging. We know that sometimes that's what I was told recently from the school, that they are distracting the other kids. The other children need to be ready to write their first stage progression exam. So this child is being disruptive. What are the strategies? How are we willing to work together to help this child to be able to also be in the total class as a whole? We have, if I start to talk, I'll talk too much, so let me pause here so Ella will take it.
Yes, I was going to move to you, Delany.
So, it starts from the home before it gets to the school. How many parents are ready to accept that the child has a need, a special need?
I was going to say, there's a lot of denial.
For example, my husband is not here, so I'll talk about it. I hope he doesn't hear. You know what? I've come to admit that our daughter, is, I don't want to even target. She has need. She's that kind of child.
Yeah.
She wants to be free. She will tidy up her room because I'll be on her. The next 30 minutes, you go there, the room is upside down. And she'll tell you that I thrive better in this space. Yes. You go to her room and you can hear voices. And you go and peep. She's talking to herself. She's put so many things and she's talking to them. They're having a meeting. They're having whatever. She can write stories. She can write stories out of nowhere within an hour. She started doing this at 4, and I could identify that. And you know what? I remember I asked you for a child psychologist, if you remember. Yes, she's the one. And my husband is like, oh, she doesn't have any special needs. She can. My husband is an A student, exceptional A student. Oh no, she's thriving. She's just being lazy. She needs to. I'm like, Charlie, it's not like that. I can see what is happening and where we are going. If we don't help her, she's going to be stifled. And that is what's happening in the schools. A class of 30, 35, one teacher, how can she identify those needs and support that child? Can you
I was going to
imagine?
say it's about 50.
You have JHS 1. Let me use you JHS 1, and they are A, B, C, D. 35, 35, 35. And you have, let's say, 2 teachers handling numeracy. Where are we going? So as a parent, you need to step in. The school cannot do it all. If you are in the IB, you are in the Cambridge, hallelujah. It's a big privilege. GES is doing well. They have a long way to go. But as a parent, you need to step in. The earlier, the better.
I was doing my master's at Harvard, and all the projects and all the work I did was actually to analyze extensively the Ghanaian system, the Ghana Education Service, the 2030 strategic plan that they had, and to actually, I did a whole paper on comparing teacher training here in Ghana versus Singapore and Finland, and kind of seeing like what should we put in place here to make these changes and development. But more importantly, what really struck me when I delved deeper into the Singapore, if you look at the OECD ranking of countries when it comes to education, they always score first. 50 years ago, they put a plan for their country. They were one of the poorest country, least developed country, and they said, we have a 50-year plan. In 50 years, we're going to be one of the top countries in the world. And they achieved it. Through what? Through education. So they have this whole design on how intentional they were in their teacher training and developing their curriculum and the expectations they had on students. By the way, they have 30 to 40 students per class, but the teacher that teaches them has half of their time free to personalize learning for each one of them and to give feedback and so it's really for us to go forward, we need to look at systems that work and systems who have been also through the same. I sit on Africa Dyslexia Organization board, and along with my Singaporean fellow who is the head of the Dyslexia Association in Singapore. And if you see the work they've done and the work they do on this, every year for the dyslexic in Singapore and what they've been able to achieve is next level. So it really has, the intention has to be there. The wanting to learn from systems that have succeeded is there. So it's not necessarily the numbers of students. It might be the quality of the teacher, the timetable of the teacher, the way we set up our schools, the way we, even the specialization, the pathways they have. So we've also been working a lot on developing pathways of specialization for our teachers. Those who want to become instructional coach, who want to become expert in literacy, those who want. So we've designed, we always say in our school, we're all learners. My teachers have to constantly every year seek more on learning and skills development to be able to be at the top of what is happening in the fast changing world right now. And education is the one that is changing the fastest, by the way. With AI and tech and this, we have a whole AI committee, and we even have an AI hub where our expectation, AI competency, expectation. I use extensively, and I've taught my kids to use AI extensively. Ethically, but also ethically. IB allows us to use AI under specific regulations because, and I'm now going, I was just telling somebody to ACE Summit, which is AI competencies in education. So now the whole world, including OECD, the governments, all of that, they're talking about education in the age of AI. And Ghana, we haven't still finished our STEM centers yet. STEM was 30 years back, by the way. Nobody is talking about STEM right now. Everybody's talking about machine learning, data science, AI, robotics. It has come centuries beyond STEM, basically. But we need to start waking up, learning. Not necessarily the number of students is a problem, but maybe so it goes back more to our I believe our core issue is teacher training. Our core issue. We solve that. We solve a lot. Administrator and teacher training, honestly. Yeah. So, and we have a lot of countries to learn from, honestly. And if you go to the bachelor in education, because I actually see it, some of my teachers who are doing their masters, what do we do in an education program? Theory and exam on paper. I'm like, how are you going to be an expert teacher if all I'm examining you as a teacher is a paper exam? That's all they know, how to answer questions.
Yeah,
how are they going to be in a successful where within a minute they're making 90 to 200 decisions about students and curriculum and what to do. Our biggest issue is teacher training. And if anything, I would always recommend, we as a school have 3 priorities: personalized learning, well-being, because there's also, we haven't spoken even of the social, mental, and psychological aspect, and the aspect of trust, that I trust you as a teacher, I trust you as a school, I feel safe in this school, so now I'm ready to learn.
Yeah.
How many schools really look at, is the student feeling good coming to school? Is the student happy coming to school? Or don't I care about that? If I don't care, then the student is not ready to learn. I always tell the student, if the student is not in the right mindset, means the potential for learning has disappeared. So well-being is the third is staff development. That should be the same way you're considering your students are learner, your staff are your biggest learners in the school. Because they need to,
you have prioritized teacher training. You have prioritized teacher training. GS system, they rely heavily on the government. And if the government does not prioritize teacher training and some funds into that because it's expensive, or sometimes it doesn't necessarily need to be very expensive, but there's a cost. And if that is not prioritized, there isn't going to be any training or development. I'm going to give you a very funny example. My brother in secondary school, his teacher drew on the board was a type of beaker, in science. And he drew it so well. And then he raised his hand and asked the teacher, have you ever seen this beaker before? The teacher said he's never seen it before. It's all theory. He's never seen it. And he said, and then instantly, half of the class lost interest in the class because it's like, if the teacher teaching us this thing is drawing this thing, we can't see it. And this was just 10 years ago. He has never seen it. We haven't seen it as well. So where are we going to? You get me? So a lot of things are theory. I know some companies that are not even hiring first class students because at the end of the day, it's all theory. You just did rote learning. I always say this thing in my university level, it was rote learning. Level 100, it was filling the blanks. So if I didn't write what the teacher told me to write, the lecturer told me to write, I'm failing. So that really is the problem. So we really have to go back to the system. But Rodrigo, you have something to add to that?
I completely agree with everything. Yeah. I'm not sure I do not have the knowledge about enough knowledge about Ghana itself to benchmark it with Singapore or the French system, if you definitely know better the French system. However, you talk about priorities. I agree. Here we are here like it's events for parents also, and talking to parents, I think, what is your priority when you choose a school? Basically, but if you have the luxury of choosing a school, when you do, now, if you have one of the privileged one that can choose a school and I can afford another one, that's 2 different things. Well, I think some schools are designed for the parents. That's one of the trends that could be in the private education. They're designed for the parents because they want to, offer school spaces. And that's a trend I can see. I'm not naming any schools, just a thing around the world that does exist. Big adverts, nice pictures, nice videos to attract some of the parents. That's one kind of school. Another kind of school, they just build to perpetrate a system. So schools, that could be government schools, but it could be also established school. They're just there because they're there and because they exist. So the curriculum will be carry on and will exist and etc. They will do the timetables because the timetables is there and because the hours of the teachers are there. So we'll just carry on doing it because there's an exam at the end. A very few schools are designed for the children, actually. When you think about how the school works, when you think about what do you organize as a school manager inside a school or as a school teacher, what is your priority? It should obviously be the learning and the students and to accommodate all this kind of learning. The reality in different contexts, for socioeconomic contexts, for different, that I'm not going to explain because I don't have all the knowledge about it, but for different reasons, most of the school tend to forget. It seems strange what I'm saying. tend to forget what they are for. Because we have budgets, because we have hours to fit in, because we have teachers to employ, because we have the curriculum to achieve and an exam. And when you, as a parent, think about which school should I go, try to read between the lines. Is this nice sports facility designed for the nice image of the school? Or does the school implement a sports curriculum that does actually enable every single child in the school to do sports, even the ones that are not the sporty ones, even they are not the top team, even not captains? Does the school provide that teaches language for everyone? Or not just the one that are already bilingual? So maybe, as a parent myself, that's what I ask myself when I choose a school. Like, what is the school priority? Is the school designed around this big fancy thing? Or is the school designed around the needs of every child? And that's a little thing. It's easy to check. It is easy to check. Ask the school. For the sports, for example, come back to PE curriculum. Ask the school. You can challenge them, if you like prospect parent, you can challenge everyone. Because we are ready to, we want your money. You want you to be in. So challenge us and say, okay, what do you do? How do you ensure that actually my kid does not really into football, is actually will have a space in the football team and will do some football from the age of 5 or 6? Because some school designed for the parents, for business reasons, will really sell you that they have a thriving, high-achieving football team, top of the league. Who is playing then? 11 players? 15? What about the 200 less? That's the thing you should ask, I think.
Yeah.
The same for music, same for all the subjects.
Thank you. I really want to move on to, yes, I think we have some questions, so I'm going to move on to our audience. I'll have you first.
My name is Victor. Just a few thoughts to share. Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Victor. Just a few thoughts to share. So, for context, hi, Dr. Demat. I have trained under Dr. Fatima a few times. I've been to Al Rayyan, so I see the work they do. But I want to disagree with Dr. Fatima a little, and then agree with her on some things, and then also maybe address a few things that Priscilla shared. On this issue of individualized learning, I think we should segregate. The point for me is, if we do not segregate, we cannot support. And so Priscilla was saying extensively that it's important that we integrate, and that's good. But if you do not, isolate some student, our individualized learning support programs do not become effective, because again, you have different kinds of learners. They're very high achieving learners, and then those who are, there and thereabouts, and they need a bit of hand holding. Any educator in this room understands if you want to tailor for all of them within the same space, someone struggles. The one who needs help struggles, the high achieving student struggles. So how do we create a situation where we get to support everyone and get all of them there and thereabouts? So that's number one. Number two, on the issue of standards, and I think Rodrigue probably alluded to this, and I'm going to just speak a bit on that. If we do not set standards for students to meet, we cannot even tell if someone is doing well or not. And so the idea that we should do away with setting, benchmarks and thresholds and standards, again, is a bit, I think, for lack of better expression, misplaced. Because if we can keep standards, that's how we grow them into the world, because the world lives with standards. And so meritocracy becomes a thing. So if there's a standard you can meet, so how do we help you if you need hand-holding to meet the standard? Moving the standard away does not help anyone. Then how do we tell you you're improving? So the standard, so if there are steps, we can tell that, okay, you're growing in baby steps, but we're getting to a certain place. There are no standards, we cannot measure anything. But I think also that we should give teachers some credit sometimes. So, and this time I'm disagreeing with Priscilla. So Priscilla says beautifully that often it is teachers who get to identify the students have needs. Do we all agree? Then quickly you say teachers should do more in helping. Actually, it is in the tailoring that teachers get to see that, oh, this child is struggling. And so we flag to whoever our immediate superiors to say, I think Abner needs a bit of help. And so do we send them to the special needs unit, or do we need to talk to a parent? And also, I think that oftentimes we need to give teachers a little more credit than we do. And then the last thing, I want to come now. So this one is a question to you, Dr. Daymat. I think the Ghanaian problem is that we don't have a national education philosophy. So because there's no philosophy, everyone, it's called frefrekobo. Sorry, you don't understand that. But it's like we play any position we want. And so school A is doing the school, and even for the GES schools, depending on who leads the schools, we're doing different things. How do you think the lack of national education philosophy is affecting us? And the fact that Singapore created one 50 years ago, we don't have one. How then do we help our students? Right, thank you.
You know, I'm going to go through all of this. The aspect of segregation. You know, I told you we've been doing it for 14 years. I can tell you we're going to do it for 20, 30 years, and we're going to keep changing the way we do it. One thing that, for example, we've realized now is that we completely need to redesign our classroom spaces to be inclusive. Because the way we've designed the traditional classroom spaces is that size, these tables, and then means that child that is on a one-on-one support or has somebody or needs a certain space or sits in a certain way or needs certain resources, there's no space for that child. Something I realize now is like, oh, the more I'm delving deeper with my team on inclusion and on, as I told this diamond shape of the services and opportunities that needs to happen, I've realized we completely need to redesign everything we're doing and how we're designing spaces, how we're designing playgrounds. How, you know, we always say the way, you know, I was hiring somebody for the ASA, the Association of International Schools in Africa. And one thing we said, like preferable, somebody has to be a head of school of an international, had leadership, and it was a head of school, an accredited international school in Africa. So the response they gave me is like, if you do that, then because ASA, I'm talking about the international accredited ICIS schools. She said, then you only get white males to apply for this position. Why? Because with that rule, the accredited CIS, American Embassy, you know, all these schools, historically for 100 years, this position was for a male. So when you put that rule there, you excluded so much others. So when you are designing, so my question, my kind of thinking, I would tell all heads of schools that are here, when you design your schools, when you design your classrooms, when you design your curriculum, when you design your standards, who are you excluding? Who are you excluding? If it was designed this way, then yes, you have no option but to segregate. But if it was completely redesigned in the way we call it universal design for learning. Universal design for learning comes from the concept of architecture, how architects design buildings to be accessible by anybody on a wheelchair. So they think that, okay, who will be accessing this building? So how do I need to develop access to it? So a universal design for learning in education means I am thinking of everything of the way they access, the way they tell us how they learn and how we assess. If we're designing for a very small group, you've excluded. So that's where you have no option but to segregate. So that's on segregation. Second one was on a teacher, 100%. If anybody does the magic in the classroom is the teachers. But it's about also building that kind of culture in your school. For us, when we started having our first, high need autistic nonverbal, people were scratched. And I started getting lots of complaints from parents, from this. It's like, how, the other kids are doing. And I told them, that's a commitment we're doing. We're an inclusive school. Please allow me the space. And I put my foot down to say, this is the kind of community we are and the values we were. You don't want it? Find another school. By the way, I've had a lot of parents bring me their special need kids and put the other kids in the other school. Then I set a policy. If you don't bring your whole family, then you're not coming to my school because you believe your kids need to be segregated. You do not believe your kids need to be in the same school and they deserve to be in the same school. So don't bring me your special needs student and put your other kids in another school. means you do not believe the values and the beliefs we have in our school. So that's the second one. The third one is on by the way, there is a philosophy. You just need to read the 2030 strategic plan, but nobody shares it. There's nobody. So if you want to know the philosophy of this, Abel, maybe you should tell more about that because you were part of that. The whole philosophy till 2030 is STEM education for the Ministry of Education. We have that, but this is documents. You have to go on the website of an organization that developed the strategy for the Ministry of Ghana to find it. It's not even on the Ministry of Ghana's education website. It's on the other organization website. And I worked in it extensively trying to understand what is the ministry, learn the skills, but it's about putting the right training and program to ensure that these are the standards. So putting the standards, so I want to come back to the standards. So putting standards for your teachers on your education philosophy. And you said we have to meet the standards. Yes, but what kind of standard? Is it so much limited standards that you're excluding everybody else? All I'm saying, expand your standards. You have your Cambridge standards, add more for students who cannot meet your Cambridge standards. I have, by the way, PYP is completely exclusive. MYP, the middle year program, it's not inclusive. So I've developed pathways for students who cannot do the MYP. Then they come to CP. By the way, I had a student who was 17-year-old, but he was taking a curriculum of 12. And I worked with a university to have a pathway called the Embrace Pathway, and now he's in university. So universities have even created these pathways for students who have cognitive delays and need a complete. So the standards you're speaking to are the limited standards. Open up your mind to a lot of additional standards and a lot of additional possibilities because they are there, but we are refusing to see them. And if they're not there, we need to build them.
Okay, we're going to have to set a time limit for Dr. Fatima, please. Are there any more questions? I know you want to add something. Are there any more questions? You have a question? Yeah, just two questions, and then that's it. Okay.
So, good afternoon. My name is Gifty, and I want to talk to Dr. Priscilla.
Yes.
So,
oh, you want to
okay.
talk to Priscilla?
Yes.
Okay.
So my younger brother has cerebral palsy, and then he learns things so fast. He's in SHS2 now, but then let's say this thing's on this wall, he won't be able to read it. When he was in JHS, when everyone is learning and everything, they push him aside, just be there, and then he still doesn't know how to read. But then when the results came, he passed in ICT and then fashion and technical skills. My parents didn't want to take him to school, but then because they didn't also go to school, and then I'm the only one who is in school. So I told them, okay, they should take him to a fashion school. And then he's doing so well, but then when the results come, he doesn't pass. But then when practical skill, this thing comes, he passes. And my parents still don't want to understand that since I do better in school every time. So what can I as a sister do to help him? Should I convince my parents to take him out of school and focus only on fashion, or do other courses in addition? Because he's so good in fashion. He's in second year, but then he can sew a dress for me too, where he can do everything. But then when he comes to reading, writing, he knows nothing. And his friends compare him to Ishan from the movies and those things because and it's so sad because children like that, when they go to school, they just push them aside. Just be there and do whatever you want to do, and then they don't mind them. So what can we do to help them?
Okay, so yeah, I know we are running out of time, so you just have a minute to explain. But I just wanted to say there was something profound that Dr. Fatima said at a dyslexia conference where she mentioned that the education system failed when the printing press was invented, because then all of a sudden that is the standard of, yeah, once you can read and write, you've passed or failed.
I believe some of the things have been addressed with your questions, and I would say that teachers do a lot, and I have worked with schools where I've seen to the point where the therapy team was no longer needed in the classroom. We successfully integrated. Teachers were well empowered, and when I come to your school, I come to your class, my main goal is, number one, help this child, help the teacher to understand this child I've brought into the class, and how to liaise between the teacher and the child to bring that connection. Once the teacher now understands this is this child's way of learning, my job is done. The child now also understands what are the expectations, and we keep doing periodic check-ins. Teachers do a lot. I'm not trying to say teachers don't, but I believe lack of training, and teachers are really passionate. They want to help, but they don't have the skill set. They don't even know how. And if it goes back to how we are being trained in teacher training, and that really needs to be done as a nation. I don't know if any government representative is here, but the national teacher training should do a lot of work in helping to train these teachers. I believe GES is doing a lot. I've been to a lot of conferences, and they do come, but it's the resources. Now, apart from getting the skill, how do I implement it in the school or the sector? We are privileged to be in Accra. We are not even talking about the other regions and what is happening in other areas in town. Please, your question. Yes, I would say that it's strength-based learning. That's one big word. It's because your parents are coming from the worldview we have been brought up. Exam is the standard. How are we setting goals? And I'll come in. The standard we are setting, we're not saying throw away the barriers, throw away the standards, but look at the child. And we set smart goals for this child, and as they achieve, we keep adding on. For them, we are not saying that let them pass an exam. Who set that exam standard? What is Cambridge? Who set, like, at the end of the day, life is life. We are not writing exam. We need functional skills to develop in the children. What skills are you imbibing in this child? You're going to school so that you will get some employability. You will be able to impact and do something effective. Your brother is effectively imparting in society now as a designer. How can we harness it? As a business person, I'm a behavior therapist. I just started my own venture. I'm not business savvy, but that's why you rely on those who are also experts in that. And even from class, we are learning to collaborate in groups, discussions, in peer, and it's the same thing when we go up. And you should understand where your strengths are. I am here having my pointers and my cues. Some people might not need that, but it is that is what I need to be able to actively contribute in this meeting. So let's be accommodating. Let's not put any barriers. Let's take that barrier away. That is equity. Not putting any barrier and opening it up so that we can all see. Because if there is a barrier, someone needs to stand on 3 chairs to be able to see the game on the field. But why can't we take this away so that everybody can now have access? Let's set realistic goals. That's what I will have to say.
Please wrap up. The final question.
Okay. Hi, good afternoon. My name is Henry Chatu, facilitator from Healthy Mind International School. So my question is, how can anyone who would like to be an educator in an international school become an educator in an international school? I'm asking because growing up, I didn't have, career counseling or guidance into the career path I'm in right now. I studied business administration, worked in Cote d'Ivoire for a year. COVID hit, I was back in Ghana. I ran a home bakery for 2 years. Then inflation hit. But then growing up, I knew I was passionate about music, language, children. So I decided to go around and scout through the international schools to become an educator because I had a passion to educate and impact children. Then I got to know about the IB, the Cambridge, but then I didn't have the qualification to be an educator in those curriculums. So that's my question. How can one become an educator?
Okay, so yes, I would like for Delali to take this.
Okay, right. I think we are coming from a similar background. So a school like, I'm not marketing for any school, permit me please. A school like Valley View, they have a postgraduate course for education. I know UCC does. I know there are a lot of schools in Ghana who run education courses. If you really want to be a master of such, you need to pursue further education, because they will not use you as, they will not take you as, should I put it, a novice to come and teach the children, because it's a packed system. You need to go to school. It is as simple as ABC.
No, because you have to be very careful about the policies that are being implemented now in Ghana. If you don't have a bachelor in education, you need to go get a qualification, or you cannot be part of the teacher union. So by the way, for many teachers that were with me for many years and haven't gotten that qualification, we had to work with the university to do weekend courses to ensure that our teachers are qualified. So also be very careful. If anybody tells you that you could do the right and left, no, go back to the teacher union, because your certification is now, they're gonna close. Abel, tell me, you cannot, your school will be the NASIA, even the National Inspectorate Board, that will be checking school. If you have unqualified teachers, don't have a bachelor in education or a certification or a recognition from a teacher union, it will penalize the school itself in its accreditation. So this is where we're going as Ghana. So be very careful. So you need to think of international. I would tell you, you can come and see me. I can tell you how to become an international IB teachers. That's something else. If you're planning on traveling and becoming an IB, a worldwide IB teacher. But I'm telling you, if you're planning on being a teacher in Ghana, there's a clear pathway that the government has designed and eventually is going to implement strictly. So you have to be careful there.
All right. So you don't have anything to add? All right. So we'll have to wrap up now, but I'm wrapping up with this saying. So it talks about our education system, and it says, everybody is a genius. But if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life believing it's stupid. So that sums up what we just discussed. Thank you all so much. We've learned so much. A round of applause for our panelists. Thank you. I'm honored. Let's take a quick picture. Yeah.